once the show aired, pretty much I was still running the iron shop with two of my sons. And once the show was an overnight success. And what happened is the doors opened and it just started flooding. You always wish to get to that point where you're making more money and being more comfortable. But in this situation, and I always had to work hard to get to do that, but in this situation, all of a sudden it came in.
You're listening to the Just Sayin podcast, offering conversations with experts that will educate, inform, and entertain. Here's your host of the Just Sayin podcast, Charlie Cornacchio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the start of season 2 here on the Just Sayin podcast. I took a little hiatus for the past couple of weeks while getting ready to start up season 2. Much of it wasn't really a hiatus. I did get to see family, and that's always great. Got to see my grandson play baseball. Got to hang out with my kids and my grandkids. A lot of laughs. I love when that happens. But it was really kind of a working hiatus. As many of you know, I produce a webcast called Paul's Public House. And so between shooting and editing that, it was really kind of a working hiatus. But I'm really excited about how season 2 is shaping up because some really great guests are scheduled for the podcast, including today's guest, Paul Teutul, from the famously popular TV show Orange County Choppers. But first, today's podcast is sponsored by New Leaf Hypnosis, where hypnotist Anthony Serino helps you to become the you that you deserve. And you don't even have to leave your house. Anthony has been so successful in helping people with fears and phobias and weight loss, and even those suffering with chronic pain. He does it through a Zoom call. I Zoomed with Anthony for weight loss, like many of you. I think the 19 in COVID-19 stands for how many pounds you'll gain while staying home. So he helped me with that. And the remarkable thing is I used to be an Oreo cookie fanatic, any sweets actually. But in the past 4 weeks, I have not had an Oreo cookie or any cookie or a chip or a cake or most anything that's sweet. And that's because Anthony helped me to see those sweets in a different way. So check out New Leaf Hypnosis and see what he can do for you. This podcast is also sponsored by the Winning Athletic Scholarship Video Blueprint, helping student athletes produce a results-oriented video that will help set them apart from all of the other video submissions college coaches get bombarded with. And if you want to make a great first impression on a college coach, this is the way to do it, and it's COVID-proof. So check it out at athleticscholarshipvideo.com. All right, so Paul Teutul. This guy is a self-made man, an inspiration. Discovery Channel saw his potential, made him into an international star. And if you ever saw any of the videos when Paul and his sons would visit an event, the crowds were enormous. They were like the Beatles of the bike and welding world. So during the summer vacation, I was doing some media management and organizing all of the videos that I shot over the years. And I came across a video interview with Paul Sr. This is a great success story of a guy from Yonkers, New York, who started his own business with very little money, made bikes more as a hobby, and then brought them down to Daytona to sell them. He battled drugs and alcohol addiction way before we all knew him as Paul Sr., and remains clean for over 30 years. And then one day woke up as a household name in over 161 countries. Paul Sr. has an inspiring story for anyone who thinks going from small to big can happen to them. Watch and listen.
Basically, I started out with a truck and a welder, and just kind of welded, car exhaust and farm stuff that was broken. And then, I went into my own business and I did mostly ornamental work. Then from that, I went into what they call structural. And, I went from one welder and one person to 75 employees and 2 shops later on down the road.
So how do you go from just you and your sons to 75 people?
I think it was all about perseverance. Failure wasn't an option. And, You know, I knew I wanted to do more than just weld things. Kind of like building bikes. You know, you start with with nothing, and then it develops into a bike. And I think that when I started doing, you know, ornamental work, it was pretty cool. Then you got into the structural part, and you know, you fabricate in your shop, and then the next thing you go out in the field, and it's a complete building, and that's the reward in it. What's good about is having your own fabricating shop is you can do, especially back in the day, they didn't make aftermarket parts, so you had to do it yourself. So that was an advantage of having a welding shop. You could do more than most people could. So, you know, my first Harley was in 1974. The problem was is that I had to keep maintaining my welding business, and it didn't really allow me a lot of time to either work on my Harley or, you know, my passion was always bikes. I took my retirement money and built bikes in my basement, and I built 4 or 5 bikes down there, and then I brought them to Daytona, and nobody knew who I was. And you know, when the magazines came around, they seen the one particular bike that I had, and they actually put it on the cover of a magazine. So, you know, from there, basically, I started not really having customers per se to buy the bike, but I started building like the older school bikes, and you know, then I would take them down to Daytona, and I'd wind up selling them. And you know, at some point, my sons were kind of running the business. I was running it, and I decided to open up a shop down below my shop, which just was like a 40 by 40 building. And you know, I just wanted to do, because I liked it so much, I just wanted to do maybe 10 bikes a year or something, just kind of a hobby. And I started building bikes, and in actuality, before the show even hit, I started getting dealers that were interested in my bikes. And then the show came along. I was in business about maybe a year, and I had just put a website up, you know, like just a simple website. And Jesse James had done a show on the West Coast, and they asked the producer to find somebody on the East Coast. And as he was looking through sites, he seen a picture of me, and he said, "This guy looks like a bike guy, give him a call." And then the rest was history. Once the show aired, you know, pretty much I was still running the iron shop with 2 of my sons. And once the show was an overnight success. And what happened is the doors opened, and it just started flooding. You know, you always wish to get to that point where you're making more money and being more comfortable. But in this situation, and I always had to work hard to get to do that, but in this situation, all of a sudden it came in. And it came in so fast that I had to figure out a way to capitalize on it, because it was just me at the time. Actually, it was just me. I had my son with me, but you know, I had to figure that out, and because I didn't want to miss out on any of that, because I worked so hard to hopefully get to not that point, but somewhat of that point.
So you never had any TV show experience. What was that like?
It's kind of like you're getting bum rushed, you know, and you really don't know what to think, other than the fact that you know, you have an opportunity to make a lot of money and do a lot of things. So, you know, it was kind of foreign to me, being that the last thing in the world that I would ever think about was being a celebrity. You know, I didn't even really like to get my picture taken. So it was just you know, the book is Ride of a Lifetime, and it's you know, I'm still in there on that ride. When the show was overnight success, you know, it was in the New York Post, and it was all over the place, and the ratings were all over the place, and everybody came to me. People wanted to do licensing deals, you know, so it automatically came. And you know, at one time we had 75 different licensees, from Christmas bulbs to doorknobs to, car mats, but anything that you saw had OCC on it. And then I think that, you get to a point where it's so overwhelming. You really have a hard, in the steel shop, I can say, come on over here, take the welding test, and you pass, you fail, you fail. But, I had to hire people, taking a risk, and, fortunately, I had some of the right people working for me because I really wasn't able to do it all myself.
Did you like it?
I loved doing the show. There was a lot of good and a lot of bad and a lot of work, but somehow, after doing it for 11 years, it becomes like part of your life. When you go to work in the morning, if the camera's not there, you're like, well, what's going on here, And we haven't filmed in a while. But, the being out in the public eye, before people really recognize who you are, there's that factor about this guy being this real bad guy, and then, as you progress, and people get to know you more, and then they realize that you're not a bad guy, and, that's like an up and down thing, when I did junior versus senior, everything's in editing, and what they did is they made him look good and me look bad, and it got good ratings. So they continued to do that for 3 or 4 years, and it had an effect on my business, because, in perception of the outside world, I looked like a real bad guy. But I had no control over it because they edited the show the way they wanted to. So even if I said something nice, they wouldn't put it in there and, show this.
So the lights go dim, the cameras leave, you're still grounded. You still stayed the same down-to-earth guy.
Yeah, I do. I come from a humble background, so I always remember where I came from, and so it's a gift, I think, and it really puts me in a place where I have the opportunity to do a lot of good things. I'm still pretty popular in 160 countries. It's almost like they know you because I've been in their house so long. So if I'm walking through the airport, somebody will say, "Hey, senior, what's up, Paul?" So they address it different than your basic celebrity. I think that using my celebrityness as a tool, to support military, to make awareness, to Make-A-Wish Foundation and different charities, and be able to be a part of making a difference in people's lives. And, I think by sharing what I did on TV, as far as the drinking and stuff like that, and, a lot of people that I talked to, they were very influenced by that, and they'll tell me, they've been sober for a while. And then, the same thing with the motorcycles. People got rid of their bike 30 years ago, and now they're back riding. So I think it's the influence stuff, and it's what being a celebrity allowed me to do, as far as reaching out to people, and to continually do that.
Can we talk about the drug and alcohol years? I mean, every obstacle that has kind of crossed your path, you busted through, or you toughed it out.
I just celebrated 30 years, and I really drank a lot, and I think that, my experience in that is I drank for many years, and I never thought I would get sober. I just really thought that I was going to die that way. And I think at the end I was probably deteriorating. But, something happened. I decided to go into a 12-step program, which was not what I wanted to do. And, I learned that a day at a time, if you got through the day without a drink, that was a lot greater than I've ever done, because I drank every day. And then I think that, eventually you develop time, and then you look back and you say, oh man, I got 90 days or whatever it is. And you don't really want to blow that. So that kind of continually helps you to stay sober and drug free. But, I don't think that you could make anybody get sober. They need to want it themselves, because, for 10 years, my wife told me I had to get sober, and everybody else, because it's a destructive thing. It affects your family, and it affects everybody around you. And I think the stats of 1 out of 35 people get sober and stay sober. So it was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do. But one of the things that I could say is never say never.
I know that sometimes a person who's affected doesn't even realize they have a problem, but you recognized that you did have a problem. But did you have like an intervention, or did somebody close to you say, I don't know.
No, I just think it was through the grace of God. I knew that, that I was really sick, and like, again, you know what I mean? I intended not to do anything about it. So, how I got to AA is, I don't know, I mean? It just happened. Most people go into a rehab when you're that far along in alcohol and drugs, and I really should have went into rehab, but at that point, I had my business that I had started. I was a functioning alcoholic, so I went to work every day, and I did steel work, which is what's really tough business, and I wasn't willing to give that up. Even as dysfunctional as everything was, I wasn't willing to give that up. So that's why the AA, I started going to meetings, but it allowed me to still continue work, because I just didn't want to give that up.
So what would you say would be the message?
The message is really that, anybody that really wants to succeed in whatever they want to, it takes the perseverance, it takes the effort of getting up, it takes the effort of, the learning things that you have to learn while you're doing that. And I don't, like I always say, people stay home and they collect disability and whatnot, and I kind of feel that it's really not necessary to have a job that you particularly want. I kind of look at it as, go to work in a gas station, go to work, make popcorn. It really doesn't matter, but you need to get your mindset that you need to go to work, whatever it is. And if you really want it bad enough, then you just keep taking it to the next level.
So that's the backstory to Paul Sr. of Orange County Choppers and then American Chopper. The original show ran on Discovery Channel for about 10 years, starting in 2002. And then it was resurrected on the Country Music Channel. Then Discovery brought it back for another 2-year run. So Paul Sr. now still building bikes. And along with his longtime girlfriend, Joni Kay, they rescue animals as part of Joni's efforts and both of their love for animals. Joni is on the board of the Hudson Valley SPCA, executive president. And after meeting her, you can tell that she's got a heart for animals, especially rescues. So there it is. All around good guy, Paul Teutul Sr. Of course, he's been through some rough times, but he keeps his head high through all of it and toughs out whatever gets thrown his way. And that's a good lesson for the rest of us. So that will do it for this edition of the Just Sayin podcast. We're in season 2 and excited to get things rolling. Looking for future episodes of the Just Sayin podcast? Never miss an episode by hitting the subscribe button. And if you haven't gotten a copy of my book, How I Met My Mother and the Four Brothers I Never Knew I Had, you can get that on Amazon, wherever books are sold. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay safe, be kind, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Sayin podcast.